Hey, friends, welcome to another episode of the show. I'm your host, Joe, and these conversations are truly the highlight of my every week. I got in late from Baltimore, Maryland. What a beautiful time of the year to just be on campuses. And today we are honored to be joined by one of the most, I would say, strategic. That's the word that comes to mind. Strategic leaders in rural education. That's a hard word to say, rural, but strategic is a lot easier to say. Please welcome Chris Lindholm, Superintendent of Cook County Schools. Thanks for joining us on the show, Chris.
Well, this is my pleasure, Joe. It's a good opportunity to catch up with you, a friend of mine, and also just to share some of the great work going on here in Cook County by really good people.
I can't wait to just shine a light on so much going on in Viking land, right?
Right,
Yes,
right,
home of
right.
the Vikings, right? Arr, arr. No, that's the pirates. What did the Vikings say? I don't know.
That's part of the story, so we can talk about that later.
I think Cook County kinda rhymes with what I know of, like, the UP of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in terms of just rugged terrain, just beautiful people that have to have skills in order to, like, live up there.
Right, right.
Just very unique. And you dropped in, what, 2021?
2021. Yep,
Yep.
July.
Yep, 2021. Um, the did you have to pass, like, a skills test in order to live there? Did you have to go through
Well, well, I was a hobby farmer, so I
I
have a
know
little bit of
you
that
are.
going on. But I'm not here now. No, my wife and I live in downtown Grand Marais. But you're not wrong. There are some unique challenges to living in Cook County, just because we're 2 hours away from the nearest, space that has a big box store or a place to go get tools or food or groceries or
Right.
healthcare. So it is definitely unique living 2 hours away from the next urban center. But people here do it. We like to say that nobody lives in Cook County by accident. You you have to want to be here because you claw your way in and you figure out your jobs and you figure out your childcare and you figure out how to buy a house in probably the hardest housing market
Yeah.
in Minnesota, if not the Midwest. So people
Speaking of houses, is log cabin living? Is it all that it's cracked up to be?
Well, yeah, we ended up in a log home and not by choice, but because it was the only thing we could get. And it's a lot of work, but you know what? I'm really just happy to have a nice place to live in Cook County, Minnesota.
You've got a little work to be done on that. I'm
Little
following
work,
you on the
little work
Facebook there.
never
You
ends.
you got some stain on your hands?
Not yet. I just
Not
put
yet.
up the scaffolding last weekend.
Okay. How's the fishing? You back out
Haven't been
there?
out yet. Not yet. Next
Mhm.
weekend.
Are the salties running out
There's
on the
no
big water?
no the big boats are running, yes,
Yeah.
but we haven't seen any fishing boats out there just yet. The water's been pretty cold. We
Well,
just had ice out up the hill like right now.
folks, yeah, we've had many innings of baseball being played, but, up there, ice is just getting off.
Just getting off. Some lakes will still be frozen for the fishing open.
Well, it's a busy time to be a superintendent.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
do you have your commencement speech pretty well memorized yet?
The principal does most of that heavy lift, but I'll be there to offer a welcome. And actually, we have a little bit of a surprise this year to announce a big donation to our district. So I'll be part of that during our graduation ceremony. I can't spill the beans yet, but we're excited to celebrate it.
The big reveal,
Right.
I can't wait, and we've known each other for a decade, and I've gotta say that your journey is that quintessential, that educational adventure story. I mean, you started out your early career in the Twin Cities and the metro, which makes I mean, the juxtaposition of being where you're at right now, knowing where you came from. What an interesting I mean, you're just a human interest story. Your time in Pequot Lakes, another kind of a destination area, and you
Yep.
you were very, very impactful in transforming that system, and now leading education in. I think one of Minnesota's best kept secrets up in the North Shore. I think you've climbed every rung. You've been a teacher, you've been a coach, you've been a dean, you've been a principal, assistant superintendent. You probably drove a little bus in between some of those times as well. What did I miss?
Well, no, I think one of the things that I've been blessed by is that I have sort of hit every rung
Yeah.
as I've climbed the ladder. And I think a lot of superintendents, especially in rural Minnesota or in rural districts, don't get that opportunity because those positions don't exist in small districts. A lot of people go from teacher to principal to superintendent, or I've even seen that, believe it or not, teacher to superintendent. And I think about how huge that leap is.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed by really smart people, strong leaders around me as I've taken each step of that way. And to be an assistant superintendent in a district of 10,000 students and
Right.
17 schools, it's a different way of thinking about systems and managing an organization than here. We have 450 kids, and there's a principal and me basically, and it's uh, it's a it's still people, it's still systems, but it's far more intimate, far more relationship driven, and it's been a fun challenge for me to learn how to think small when I've spent a career thinking it's really big, and to hold high standards and high goals and aspirations for a district that's this small and this remote, and not use that as an excuse, but use it as the reason we need excellence throughout the organization.
Yeah, when I think about you and all of those positions, I know you're not the type that like skipped over any area of competency. Going from a teacher to a principal, you were masterful at teaching, and then you spent the time to be masterful as a principal with the competencies, truly the competencies needed to be the learning leader on campus. And you portage that to district level uh, administration as well. You're somebody that would be hard to work for, not because, for any other reason, but because of your standards, because you get it, the credibility that you bring. You know what excellence looks like. So when I think about, your journey and now landing in Cook County, um, how is that how are you able to keep your standards high within an environment that is you had to really figure it out for a few years, right? How did you transition to having highly reliable, if you
Yeah,
will,
yeah.
during that time of discovery?
Well, that's an interesting question. Most superintendents, climb from rural to urban, from small to big, and
True.
I've I've made the choice, and a lot of personal reasons for that, to go from big to small and intimate. And um, it was clear to me when I moved from Metro to outstate Minnesota that raising the bar in outstate Minnesota um, required a whole lot of helping people learn what they just don't know. They don't know what they don't know because they haven't been surrounded by strong professional development and strong associations of leaders that are constantly serving as lead learners. And so we had to kind of create that. When I was in Pequot Lakes, I was fortunate to work with Sourcewell, a local co-op that really helped elevate the level of rigor and conversation amongst district leaders. And then in doing so, kind of throughout the whole region, and particularly in Pequot, we were able to do that. When I moved here, it was a really big challenge because I lost that network of that co-op that was driving the conversation, and it really just landed squarely
Hmm.
on me to drive that conversation. And I had a lot of material from my prior years,
Right.
but bringing that to the table and getting people here connected to the current research about highly effective instruction and highly effective school operations. That was what I poured my heart in for the first 2, 3 years, and continue to pour my heart in, trying to elevate the conversation. But what's really fun about a district like Cook County
Yeah.
is when we talk about in Kitty and Eaker's work, they talk a lot about the moral imperative. Start with the why. And when you're in a district in the cities, odds are good that as a school leader, you don't know the families of the vast majority of kids that are walking in your school. There's not a personal relationship there. When you're in a district of 450 kids, everybody knows everybody, and nobody commutes to Cook County. Everybody lives here and everybody works here, and all of the kids in our schools are all of our kids.
Right.
So there's no disconnect from the moral imperative of doing the best for our children. And teachers here bend over backwards to help kids because their heart tells them to. It's the right thing to do. They know the parent, they know the family, they know the historical trauma what that student might be experiencing or their family might be experiencing. And so the moral imperative is already kind of won. And that makes that leap to that's why we have to be great
Yeah.
a bit easier to knock out and to have good, honest, hard conversations about how to be better in different slices of our work.
I just feel the almost a gravitas, just the weight of the passion, I think that's connected to a purpose that if you're not in, if you're not privileged to be working in education, you kind of see it through your own experiences of being a student, back in the
Right.
day. But working, I think, in such an extraordinary uh, community that you have that has this cultural depth to it as well,
Hmm.
and historic that heritage that you have from Grand Portage band to the Lake Superior Chippewa, the vibrant arts community, all of those things that are coming together, integrated into, yes, the academic achievement and performance that you also are considering as important. So how are you balancing that educational innovation,
Hmm.
right, with honoring and elevating that the native heritage
Hmm.
that's so integral to that region and the arts as well?
Yeah.
That's a big question.
It is a really big question, but it's also what attracted me to this job and why my wife and I wanted to live here. I I've shared lots of times here in Cook County that I interviewed for the principal job in Cook County back in 2001, and I did not get it. So when I came back and interviewed in 2021, I said, "I'm back 20 years later. I still want to be here because we honeymooned and vacationed up here and just fell in love with the rich culture of Grand Marais and Cook County. I've never worked in a place where the story and the history and the story of the land and the
Mhm.
people that walked these woods and these waters and paddled these rivers and lakes is so well documented with the authors that write these books still here walking the streets in Grand Marais and giving evening talks at the library or at the local coffee shop. And I've spent the first 2 years of my time here really just diving into book after book after book and attending those talks by authors and listening to some of the podcasts that are out there because I felt the need for me to really understand that before I could even talk rigor and excellence and define that because you're absolutely right, Joe. That's going to be defined differently in a community like Cook County, where the arts are so important,
Right.
where people from different cultures have come together for over generations, and in the good and the bad, and been part of that narrative of the Gunflint Trail and the transition from um, trapping to logging and fishing to then now hospitality being kind of the number one driver of our economy. So this community has changed drastically in the last 30 to 40 years. And
Sure.
I needed to take time to realize why that rubs some of the locals that have been here for three generations wrong, and why the conversations around Cook County are so rich with an incredibly high level of academia. High percentage of people retire up here with that, and they're very, very, very educated, successful people. And so the conversations are just really rich. And um, I think what you just asked is kind of the question that I asked coming in of myself. Like, how am I going to figure out what excellence looks like and is how it's defined in Cook County? Because it's going to be different
Yeah.
than Pequot Lakes or Burnsville or any of the other places I've worked. And indeed, it is different. People here really value the relationships they have with each other. They value kind of the toughness it does take to live 2 hours away from good healthcare and a big grocery store. They value community and caring for each other. They value arts and music. They value diversity and recognizing that we are a people of diverse backgrounds that have decided to be a community together. And that doesn't come without challenges, but it definitely comes with lots of opportunity.
And folks, that's not made up stuff. I can tell you, a few years ago, I was knocking on Chris's door to just do some sparring around just some he and I sharpen, I think, each other's saw in the world of, developing healthy teams and reliable systems. And he kept putting me off. He was like, Joe, no, I'm immersed right now. I'm immersing myself as the leader into so many of the dynamics that I think that are now bearing much fruit in terms of your ability to connect well with all people, right?
Yeah.
In that community of yours. And as we think about just the values, because I remember popping into your district and seeing the pictures that you see in the front entryway there that are they are emblematic of your core values as a system. Talk for a minute or two just about how you went about that process of integrating those values into your very strategic presence on campus.
Yeah, that's an exciting story. We were in my first year here, I was leading the community and the school board through a strategic planning process, not unlike any other school district where we talk about our mission, core values, vision, and strategic directions. And we had already rough drafted up, those four areas, and had probably 2 or 3 board work sessions on that. And then in late winter, early spring, I attended the American Indian Education Conference, the Minnesota American Indian Education Conference down in Prior Lake. And I was there with some folks from here. And I really wanted to immerse myself in that association and that conversation that was going on. It brings together American Indian education providers from all across Minnesota. And um, I happened to be the only superintendent at the conference that particular year, which felt odd, but it said something, right? It told me something. And uh, I went to a breakout group, and the presenter was talking about how to embed core values in organizational leadership that honor and reflect Indigenous people's values and culture. And he made a statement. He said, if your core values line up with the values of the native peoples in your particular district, you've already got a shortcut to some successes and some quick wins. And I just went, oh, wait a minute. In the entrance of our building are the 7 grandfather teachings that are celebrated and shared by the Anishinaabe people, and they're already on the wall. And they're not that far off from what the board was talking about. When we talk about core values, words like humility, love, respect, honesty, courage, truth, and wisdom, they're going to come up in any organization's conversation about core values. So we came back to the table and said, should we consider, like, just they're on the wall already? Should these be our core values? Um, and then I took the step from what I had learned, to do it the right way and approach a tribal elder who is on council, and give him some tobacco and have a very humble conversation about whether this is smart or not, because we want to be authentic and real and honest and humble in how we approach this, and not make assumptions about anything or push any agenda down anyone's throat. This was an honest, humble
Wow.
ask. And I met with him, with a board member, um, and getting that tribal elder councilman's blessing on that was really, really, really important. And once we had that in play, and the tribal chairman said, "Absolutely, this is awesome," from that point on, it was a no brainer that really embracing it. And the story goes on. We went on to do a facility assessment, and the core of this building was built in 1952. Last big addition was 1998, so it needs work. And we went through a big long process. Passed last November a bond referendum for $24 million of improvements to the facility, with a new entrance, a new student services center, and then finally, for the first time, a permanent home for Ojibwe language and culture classroom instruction
Mm.
to take place, and what we call our Anishinaabe Academic Center, or our AAC. And that's going to be right in the main entrance of the building, with a lot of culturally relevant visual appeal to it, built in a circle, built in a manner where we can honor and allow smudging, and really, really hold tight to the people that have been here for many, 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 many hundreds of generations,
Right.
along with all the people that have come in the last 200-300 years, and how together we've become the community of Cook County. So we're we have it on our in our core values, but now we're putting it into the building itself and into the aesthetic and into hopefully, our behaviors and how we treat each other and how we define and then shoot for the excellence we want.
Oh, Chris, I think about just for such a time as this, I mean, your journey of maturing, developing competencies, and just how to lead systems work and lead people effectively. 10 years ago or 20 years ago, you may have kind of stumbled around and not had the wisdom to I think approach these very critical decisions and connections with that high level of integrity and vulnerability. And but you're ready for it now, and that's what I love about just the human journey of we we become wise over time. A 28-year-old leader would have fumbled all around from the metro coming up there and done it all together wrong. So it's beautiful when you can tell stories that are real and true and are bearing great fruit today. $24 million is a pretty hefty price tag for people. That's a wonderful investment, and to know that you are putting every nickel, yeah, optimizing every nickel for the heritage, the legacy, the value of all things, culture, art, academics, the whole package. I'm without sounding like a parent, I'm so proud. I'm proud of the work that you're doing up there, Chris. It's just unbelievable.
Well, to celebrate somebody else in this organization, because every leader has a team around them that does amazing things. A really core part of that $24 million is updating our ability to serve and care for our most vulnerable students, our students getting special education services, and students that need changing tables and bathrooms, and they need ADA compliant entrances and spaces to be. So we're dedicating a fair amount of budget to that, including ADA compliant playground equipment for some of our kiddos that are in wheelchairs, and I'm proud of that, and it comes as in a timely way as Cook County schools, little old Cook County schools in the far up northeast corner of Minnesota with 450 kids in 2024. We were able to celebrate that our own Melissa Oberg, who is a special ed teacher that teaches an inclusion center-based classroom with some of our highest need students, won the Minnesota Rural Teacher of the Year in 2024. And then she was nominated, and believe it or not, she became the winner of the 2025 National Rural Teacher of the Year. And we've just been in awe of
Wow.
watching her go and speak at the Minnesota conference, and then go and speak at the national conference, and then come back and say, Chris, I've got 15 speaking requests over the next 12 months. And
We'll
uh,
figure it out, right?
yeah,
We'll do
well,
what we do. We'll figure it out.
and her message is just amazing. Her message is teaching's hard, but inclusion, creating spaces for our kiddos is an absolute must. It's a must for the success of those kiddos, and how well it benefits students who are not disabled by creating a space where every kid is welcome. And as I've shared with other people, we're unique in Grand Marais in that we can't send a student away to a level 4 facility or a level 5 facility or to an ALC. We're 2 hours away from anybody. So every single student, no matter their needs, is going to get their education right here. And that forces us to say, all right, we love all kids, and we're going to figure this out, and we're going to make it a great place. And Melissa has championed that over the last many years now. And I just love celebrating her and holding up that right here in little old Cook County, we have the National Rural Teacher of the Year, and we could not be prouder.
I love watching you come alive. And I know that you are the type of leader that wakes up every morning wondering, have I created the right conditions for my teachers and my staff to do the brilliant work that they're called to do? Because it is a calling, and you believe that, I believe that, and it's also a privilege. It's also a privilege,
Yes.
but not it's hard. It's so leading today has been so hard. I work in higher ed and K-12, and there's a lot of pressure on school leaders, school superintendents, college presidents to solve seemingly impossible challenges these days. And we're watching leaders that are weary, just
Mhm.
kind of coming in for a landing, and some of them are actually wounded as well.
Yep.
And I don't know if you got a pep talk in you, coach, if you still got a pep talk in you, but I like to just close out our time on the podcast here of just what encouraging words would you have to share with a leader that is just like, I don't know if I got another round left in me, boss. You know, uh, a word of encouragement to persist because it's worth it, or what would be front of your heart to share?
Well, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I share those feelings
Yeah.
and really wake up every morning kind of, whew, here we go. But this year I was blessed that my district sent me to the AASA conference that took place down in New Orleans. And the keynote at the end of the conference was absolutely phenomenal. I can't remember his name. He served in the Obama administration as an education advisor, has an honorary doctorate, I think, from University of Boston, if my memory is right. But in 1963, he was, I think, 12 years old, African American scholar, of course, now, but at that time, a 12-year-old Black student in the South. And he asked his parents if he could march on Washington with MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. And his parents, of course, no, it's going to be dangerous. Um, Finally, they caved in, and he did, and he went to jail for the protesting, and went to jail for over a week, and he rose to be a scholar. He rose to be a campus president. He rose to be an education leader, and he stood in front of us as I think only an African American male who marched on Washington in 1963 could do, and say, folks, it's hard right now, but they need us. The kids need
Mm.
us. Step up, get ready to march, and march on. We have to lead through this time. And I walked away from that with a new calling for courage and resilience, and to figure out a way to make sure every kid is loved. And that means we got to move forward as a system, as a state, for sure as a school district, and make sure that every kid that walks in these doors is loved and cared for, and is challenged to be the very best they can be. And um, so let's use his words. If he could do it in 1963 as a 12-year-old, I can do it in 2025 as a 51-year-old, and um, march on.
March on, folks. The North Shore visionary. Chris Lindholm, thank you for showing us really what vulnerable, courageous, brave leadership looks like. As a learning leader as well, you're not somebody that has a job. You are continuing to learn every single day in these complex and challenging days. So I want to thank you for joining us today. Any just last words before we go?
Just thanks for your work, Joe. I always appreciate working with you and learning from you.
This has been the show, reminding you that everyone deserves to live in a community that is served by healthy people like this amazing human being right here, who are building reliable systems that your community really, really deserves. I mean, that's our equity statement. Your community deserves healthy teams and reliable systems. So until next time, peace and press on, folks.